Welcome back to the Digital Accessibility Podcast. If you're looking to learn more about the field of accessibility, how to implement it within your role or your company, or to get advice on where to start or see how others have navigated complex issues that you may find along the way, then you're in the right place. I'm honoured to be able to share these insightful chats with thought leaders, advocates and practitioners of digital accessibility throughout this podcast, and I hope you'll find it a useful resource. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the chat. Today's guest is another familiar face to those who know me and have listened to the podcast from the very beginning. With deep roots in the tech recruitment world and a growing influence on how accessibility is understood, valued and resourced in organisations, I'm joined by Jane Abbott, Managing Director of PCR Digital, a B Corp certified technology recruitment partner, and now the founder of a new consultancy focusing on mobile app accessibility, Welldone Consulting. Jane spent over 2 decades in recruitment, taking on leadership of PCR Digital in 2017 and helped the company grow while building a reputation for ethical, people-first resourcing. Her involvement in digital and accessibility hiring, including setting up what became one of London's largest accessibility meetup groups, has given her a unique vantage point on the challenges organisations face when making their products truly inclusive. In this episode, we're going to narrow in on mobile accessibility, exploring why it's important, how it's different from web accessibility, the barriers teams can encounter, and where Jane thinks the future is heading. So, long intro, sorry about that, but welcome to the podcast, Jane.
It should be welcome back, Joey. I thank you so much. This is my second time.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have done another one without you, to be honest, and lots to update on. But yeah, you've supported this the whole way through, and yeah, big movements being made. So very interested.
I really appreciate you having me on here again. So thank you.
Of course. So how working within web accessibility led you to sort of founding a mobile accessibility consultancy? As mentioned there, you've been working in tech recruitment for a while now, and over the years your focus turned increasingly towards the accessibility space, so hiring for accessibility skills and awareness. But can you share with the listeners a bit more about why a new approach is needed by way of a consultancy model, and why it's such a needed step forward in the UK and the global market?
Yeah, I think there's kind of loads of reasons why I've done this, but I'm going to start with the people first of all. So you'll remember, like, we were building networks of web accessibility people for years. And then a few years ago, you were getting more demand for mobile accessibility professionals. And it was just really hard to find people. And kind of through what you've done mostly and what PCR's done, I think another network has been created of mobile accessibility experts. And I just thought it'd be really good if those skills could be sort of used within a consultancy. And we talk about, working in accessibility is quite a lonely place. I kind of imagine that this consultancy will have these mobile accessibility experts who can all kind of be part of a group of associates who can all share and, bolster everyone up, really, because I think it's such a lonely place. So that was one kind of like, oh, I really like that side of it. Two, I think there's a real gap in the market for just mobile accessibility consultancy. I think the big consultancies out there are probably delivering web and mobile accessibility, but they might be struggling to find the really good accessibility engineers, the mobile accessibility engineers. And then I think the smaller consultancies are probably mainly doing web. And I just think that we're a mobile first world. Most people will go onto their mobile phone when they're having any digital interaction. They might end up going online to buy it or something, but we're all using our mobiles first. And I don't think there's a real focus on making apps accessible. So I think that's the gap in the market. there's also been new legislation with the European Accessibility Act, which is going to make it that you have to have a mobile app. That's not going to affect the UK, but it's anyone who's got apps being used across Europe. So there's kind of lots and lots of reasons, and I just think I just think it needs to be done. I just think everyone is focusing on the web, and I just think there's a real need for us to be focusing on the mobile stuff. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think it is an interesting one. I think there's a misconception at times in the market that it's accessibility is accessibility, or a mobile phone has accessibility features, so it's just built in. So I think
Yeah,
the misconception is, why would I need to do anything when there's features on a phone that can make things more accessible for people? But
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess we'll dive into that a little bit more as the
Hopefully,
chat goes on.
hopefully. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it's a great idea. I love the community aspect. Obviously, it's a great community already, a lot of sharing and things happening, but it does still feel quite lonely for a lot of people because there's so many larger companies with very small accessibility teams, or even just one person doing it. So I think that aspect would really help in the market.
Yeah, and I think there's you know in our world, we work with a lot of the big companies. And like you say, there might just be one accessibility person, even in a big company. But there's all of those companies who are out there who are small companies building apps who just kind of can only go by what they know. They don't have those speciality skills or anything. And I think it's just in time, I hope by what, Welldone is doing, it will just become the norm. That's a huge thing to say that we're going to make that happen. But it is that, if you don't know about it and you're not including it, then you'll never know. But I think by promoting it and showing what the big businesses are doing and things, it would be amazing if it does become the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just being a part of that journey towards making the world more accessible for more people as well. I think
Mm,
it'd be super helpful.
yeah.
And shoot for the stars and you'll hit the moon. I think that's a quote, isn't
Yeah.
it?
I can dream. I can dream.
I mean, it's again, it's all stuff in the right direction, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, bringing the best thought leaders in mobile app accessibility together is just going to be fantastic. But could you speak a bit more about what Well Done is or will be offering that's a bit different from the larger consultancy model? I guess they provide a broader audit style consultancy service, usually.
Yeah. I think I don't know many people who work in big consultancies, so I might be making sort of these statements. But I think for big consultancies, it's for them, they have to make money. It's like win the business, stay there, and then find other things to do. There are some really, really good consultancies out there, and I really respect the people who work in them, who who kind of go in, and what they want to do is help that business become almost independent in what they're doing. So they can bring in the experts, they can show them what to do, and then they can help put in mentoring and training, and then they can come out of that business. And I think that's the sort of consultancy that Well Done will be. I think so few companies will have these skills, and with a good network of associates who can go in and really help businesses solve their unique problems. So even though there's processes in place of how we work, it's not going to be prescriptive because every business is going to have different needs. I think the other thing that can be done is some quick wins quite quickly with mobile apps. There are a few really quite basic things that can be implemented that will help those in the business to say, oh my goodness, that has made a difference and that is a better user experience, or, what those changes might do. And I think they're quite cost effective to get those done, but it's almost like a bit of an education. These are the quick wins. I can't bear the word audit as well, because I just think everyone who's having these audits, is that, yes, okay, we've had our audit done now. We can say we've had our audit done and we'll do one or two fixes. But I think it's about looking at where you want your app to be working and what you want from making it accessible as much as anything else. And I think legislation will impact how that's done. But I think for companies in the UK, I think it's going to be much more of the business rewards that you get from making your app accessible. So I just think we're not going to be prescriptive. I think there'll be a set of processes that we work through. And I think at the end of the day, it's about bringing your team or your developers or whoever it might be up to a certain level so that Welldone can exit. And it might be for really big jobs. I think it's, if you're reverse engineering an app, not engineering, what's the word I mean?
Retrospectively or
Yeah,
yeah.
retrospectively, if you're going in and doing that, I think that is a big job. But I think there's still some quick wins that you can start to put in place and be talking about in the business and sharing that information as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the talk in accessibility in general is the whole shift left, and you have to have it baked in from the start. But it's kind of rock and a hard place, I think, in some aspects where large companies that have successful applications anyway, or products and services that are still successful,
Yeah,
their hands will be a bit tired. So they'll say, well, we have got something that works, something that is making us money, but we do want to make it more accessible. But starting from scratch and baking in accessibility from the start is no longer an option. So it is kind of there are those where you have to identify, okay, we're going to have to sort of retrofit and
yeah.
yeah, work backwards a bit. But
I think
hopefully
the
we'll
other
see less of that.
thing that will make a difference is, I mean, ever since I started this idea, I've been looking for the data around mobile apps that are accessible to show, were they just made accessible and what's the data about their users compared to a competitor that is not accessible, for example. And it's really, really hard to get that data. But I think Welldone wants to really have the commercial business case in place by measuring as much as we can. I don't think it's the easiest thing to do. I think there's, all other reasons. You could sort of say, oh my gosh, we've grown the users from X to Y in 6 months. And that could be actually because there was a massive marketing campaign which really increased the users. But I think trying to do some measuring as well to show the changes and what effect they've had will be another way of helping to kind of promote accessibility, because when, if the data is telling you that, you have got a bigger share of the market, or you have, more on mobile purchases than the previous quarter, I think it's going to make a real difference.
Yeah, I think it will. You will start to see it. Like you say, it's hard to really fully identify if that's purely down to just the accessibility, but I think that
Yeah,
there's going to be a measurable difference. Yeah, so the data is king in this day and age, so
I
absolutely it will
know.
help with and the awareness, but then also the accessibility maturity models as well. So if you're implementing getting a team to be a bit more mature, and that question of accessibility is in all of the stand-ups, or there is someone there that's, oh, well, Welldone came in and told us about this and that. And,
Yeah, yeah,
if that question's being asked a bit more often, then with the reporting and it will help for buy-in as well in future. So it's not just those quick wins, but it's in future they'll be able to ask the right questions and gain buy-in from the decision makers by saying, well, look, we can increase, there's a market
yeah.
difference. No, it sounds great. And I guess so, yeah, diving back into that question on what's unique about mobile versus the web or general digital accessibility, a
Hmm.
lot of organizations I see treat mobile accessibility as part of the general digital accessibility efforts,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
almost like web accessibility. It's just cross-functional, so they're using a phone to access a website or a web app. But
yeah.
in your view, what really makes that difference for mobile accessibility? And would you say, or why does it sort of deserve its own focus and expertise?
I think it goes back to the fact that we're living in a mobile first world at the moment. I think I think this year's statistics, I'm all about the data at the moment, but I
Yeah.
think that this year there will be more mobile purchases than there are online purchases in the UK. So, and that's going to continue to grow. And I think when you're looking at native apps, I th- I just think that it's very different to web. I did speak to someone the other day. We were talking about this, Joe, as well, where someone said, "God, you can't just do mobile. You've got to do everything. You know, everything in the whole business and make it all accessible." And I just think if you're a business that is, your customers are using your app, that's what you want. You want a consultancy who can come in and help with your app. You're not really bothered about what's going on everywhere else because your app is your money making product. That's where your customers go, where all your focus is. So I might be wrong about this. It might be that, we we're working with businesses doing their mobile apps and they say, hey, can you do some web stuff? I don't know, but I just believe as a consultancy, no one is specializing in this area with the consultants with all the knowledge and expertise in that field to solve problems. So that's why I'm going for it. I don't know if I've made the right decision, and you might know other, reasons around it, because you're talking to probably lots of clients as well in the accessibility space who just say it's all one thing, it's all digital, Joe. So I don't know. I just felt there had to be a singular consultancy that just focuses on the mobile.
I think it'd be helpful. It'd be nice as well to be able to partner with some of the other consultancies that are focusing or have the bandwidth to purely
Yeah,
work on the maturity or the general strategy in that side of things. But this is purely on the technical mobile side, which can be
yeah,
more complex at times.
yeah,
So I do think, and it would sort of take, it may even, I think that consultancies or consultants within other consultancies can at times be spread a bit too thin. So if you've got another consultancy that's purely on the mobile, it's like, okay, well, that's Welldone's job. They're going to come and they'll sort all of that. A lot
yeah,
of it will feed in, I believe, into the web and like general digital accessibility side.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, for those real specific sort of complex issues that are purely you need someone with Swift or Java, Android development,
yeah,
chops to be able to go, okay, well, I can actually read this. It's not just not just I'm air quoting, but HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's specific sort of code-based issues that only a mobile engineer would be able to really work upon.
and it's true. It is what you, they wouldn't exist. If everyone could do it, these people wouldn't exist. It's just really that it just comes as an afterthought for a lot of, well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's something like 95% of apps aren't accessible. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in this space. Um, I've probably got that figure wrong, but there's a lot of apps that are not
Yeah.
accessible at the moment. And I do think that those people with the skills, they have seen those problems, they know how to overcome them. It's what they do. And I think having that knowledge coming into your business and sharing that knowledge, the consultancy helping the developers or the product managers understand why things aren't working and where they can improve them, they'll do it in a quick and efficient way as well.
I think so that I agree, and I think that so I'm just checking on your statistics here now, Jane. So
Thank you very much.
I know that 95 to 96% is usually the web aim sort of report on the web. So 96% of the web or websites aren't accessible. So it
Okay,
may be that there have been other reports that around 72% of typical user journeys in mobile apps had a poor or failing experience.
right.
Um, so I mean, and that's poor or failing, but there's probably a higher proportion that
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just based on the test data. But it is, I mean, it's rife. I think that anything that can be done by specialists is an improvement, isn't it? So it's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
amazing.
think
And
so.
those turnaround times, I think, will be improved by all consultancies then. I
Yeah,
think a smaller, newer consultancy will be able to purely focus on that one key area of
yeah,
mobile and turn things around for you, because you may contact a larger consultancy and they'll say, yeah, absolutely, we can do this for you in 2 months' time. And with
yeah,
apps, it's
yeah,
so fast moving that 2 months might not be quick enough. So at least
yes.
if you've got these associates and specialists available, that you can turn things around a lot quicker.
Yeah, and they will, I mean, I'm sure this is the same with big consultancies, but I just think it's a different way of looking at the problem. I think when a mobile accessibility engineer looks at your problems and they say, well, actually, these are the quick wins. This is going to take us 2 days. These are the other things that are going to be problematic. And they could take you 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But I just think they're not there to be kind of creating a huge, great plan that's going to take months and months and months and cost a fortune. I think a small consultancy is there to help you win rather than putting in a standardized solution that every other company gets as well. So I think that one-on-one relationship is what's also needed in solving some of these problems.
It's almost helping that company, the partners or the clients that you're working with stand out, be a standalone. So it's not, one size fits all solution like you said before.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
prescriptive, but
yeah.
amazing. So the barriers, there are going to be barriers as well in terms of barriers to entry into the market and things. So when you're talking to sort of product teams, designers, or leaders about mobile accessibility, what's the main sort of pushback or barrier that you hear? Is it the skills, they don't have the skills currently, or tools, or the mindset, or is there something else that pops up quite a lot?
I think there's going to be masses of challenges. I think we live in the world and we live in a digital accessibility bubble where we kind of hear about it all the time. And then when you actually start to speak to other businesses, it's it it's incredible, all the things that they might be saying, why they can't do it, or the problems they're having. But I think the other day I spoke to a product manager, and this person is really passionate about accessibility and is always pushing for it in the business. But for the business, what is the most important thing is getting the product out the door. It's speed and update the product and get it out the door, move on to the next thing. And accessibility is in their delivery process. It's one of their points, but it's very easily taken off when they're just trying to get the products out the door. And there'll be others in that list as well. It might just be that the design wasn't quite what they wanted it to be. And so the commercial side of, just running a business and having your products out there for people to be using and then testing them and then kind of going, it's fine, and moving on to the next thing. I think, not coming from that world and hearing it from other product managers, you kind of see that it's very hard to slow down that machine and say, hang on a moment, if we make this app better, it's going to make it easier for more users to use, and that's going to actually increase how many people are downloading it and using it. That I see it in a really simplistic way, but when you're actually day to day in the job, just that, can we all stop and do the accessibility bit on here? I imagine it's really like hard. So I think that's going to be a huge barrier. That I'm talking that's in a big company. I think in other smaller companies, they just haven't got the skills in there. That's the other area, and I think that's where a consultancy can really help. And even if that consultancy just is having those initial talks with you to understand it, and even when you then come to build your next app or update it, that you've got some know-how, and where to start with. I think money is always going to be an issue. How much is it going to cost? whether that's you bringing in people yourself who are the experts so that you're hiring people if you're big enough, or whether you're, looking at the consultancies, how much is a consultancy going to cost? So I think there's lots of barriers. The other one that I think is really interesting in the UK at the moment is with the European Accessibility Act, European companies that have mobile or web products are going to have to make them accessible. And that legislation is going to force people to look at this. But we haven't got that in the UK. So there is no real need for people to be saying, I'll make my app accessible if they don't understand, if they don't understand why having an accessible app will be better for them and for all their users, then they're not going to consider it at all. So I think there's going to be lots of different challenges as we go through this. And I think it's, for a small young consultancy, I think it's early days. But because we are very small, we don't need to be having lots and lots and lots of business straight away. But I think it'll, every customer that we speak to is probably going to have a different perceptive of accessibility or what it could do for their app and why they can't have it. So I think it'll be quite interesting, really.
Yeah, and not trying to solve all your answers to that pushback, but
Yeah.
on that, they feel that they don't need to. It's a bit of a myth, I suppose, like UK based companies, because it's only going to benefit them, not only because it will make their apps more usable and they'll get a wider, portion of the audience or the market, but if they are a UK-based company with users globally, including in Europe, then they have to comply to the EAA, as well as the Equality Act that's already in place. And if it's a public sector body in the UK, then they have the public sector body accessibility regulation. So there are things in place, but I think it's still the I don't want to say ignorance, because I think it's too much of a negative word, but the unknowing of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so still growing that maturity, I suppose, and understanding.
But we do talk about it a lot, don't we, Joe?
We do.
And I just kind of think, even when I was getting an agency to help me put together a Welldone Consultancy and just help a bit with the marketing things, they just didn't get it. One of the consultants, I was just going, I don't really know what you're talking about. Why would you do this? And it was like, oh my gosh, here's me trying to tell you about this business and you don't get it. And now this person is just all over it, because it's kind of like the pennies dropped that this isn't about, in the cruelest and simplest way, this isn't about making apps accessible for people with disabilities. This is about making those things easy to use for everyone. But I think people just think of people with disabilities and kind of go, that's not much of the population. And then when they start to realize that it's people like me who can't see very well and have to have great big text on my phone, and just how I navigate things is not very much like other people. And I just think people assume people with disabilities are, I don't know, just the unseen that no one really knows much about. But that person now gets it, that it's making it, you consider everyone out there and you think, how can we make this easy for people with this, people with that? And sometimes you can't do it for absolutely 100% of the population, but trying to do it for the majority will have some huge benefits if the more you can do. But I think I just think the messaging, I don't know how I've got to get this right, obviously, but the messaging is so important, isn't it? Why do you just think it's about someone in a wheelchair or someone with a blind stick?
The misconception is huge, and it's the misrepresentation in the media. There's all sorts of, there's or no representation in the media, and like you say, the unseen. I think that's a very poignant point. Unfortunately, that is the way that things have been in the past, that people with disabilities have sort of not had that visibility, or companies haven't been thinking about everyone. And there's the whole, I mean, in banking, there's know your customer, but do
Yeah.
you really know your customer? So KYC sort of, you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
know your
Yeah.
users. Do you really understand who's using your app, or are you just making it based on what you think, as in the founder, the creator, the designer, what you think is good, what's good enough?
Yeah.
Um, so it's pushing beyond that boundary, I think, and understanding that there are people out there with disposable income, as well.
Yeah.
There's people that
Yeah.
are more than happy, and it's not even. It's. I did a post on LinkedIn this week, so this is recorded before Christmas, and it was saying about, um, accessibility doesn't stop just because people in accessibility are stopping for the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
People who are screen reader users still need to be able to book a flight to go and see family for Christmas. They need to be able to use their phone to communicate with their loved ones. They need to be able to buy presents independently and not have to ask someone else to do it for them. And it's not just screen reader users, by the way. It's
Yeah.
obviously all
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
people considered, but people don't have that consideration. But it's really lovely that you said, as soon as you started to speak about this with, marketeers and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's planting that seed. Anyone I speak to about it, I think it helps when you've got someone that is as passionate as you or I. They'll start to see it in everything, and I'll
Yeah.
be watching captions and I'll go, oh, they just haven't got captions on this. And I'm like, why not? I like to read along in case I miss something. And um,
Yeah.
I had a really disturbing, not disturb, well, it was quite disturbing, really, conversation with someone that worked in diversity, equity, and inclusion in an insurance company. And he was like, well, no, Joe, why would I need anyone that works with accessibility? We're an insurance company. And I thought,
No.
okay. And what's the average age of your investors that keep your company running? He's like, oh, well, most of them are in their 70s and 80s. And I was like, okay. And do they do everything pen and paper? Oh, no, we've got a new system. Can they access that system without you sending someone to help them? Oh, no, it's a good point. And it's just because they hadn't thought
I
about
know.
any of that. And, I'm not saying that people over a certain age are tech illiterate, but it's the usability of something and being able to have features that can make things easier for you to use. So yeah, I think it's spreading that seed, having those conversations. But then in this sense, obviously with Well Done, it is very specific and very complex and technical in terms
Y-
of the differences of mobile, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, just going back on that as well, people, you said you didn't want to use the word ignorant, but it's just like it just doesn't come into their day. And that's why it's so hard that, we're going, what do you mean you never heard about it? What have you never thought about this? And if they haven't, not everyone, but a lot of the people that we speak to, you often ask them, how and why did you get into accessibility? And I don't know, 50%, 60% of the time, they've wanted to help someone, they've met someone, they've realized, this wasn't very easy for them. And so they've looked into it and they've researched it. And then down the line, they've got into accessibility, because there's not enough people helping and doing stuff in this space. But if you have never come across anyone, then you don't think about it. So
Yeah,
it is a hard uphill struggle to ask people to think about it when it doesn't even cross their mind because they've,
yeah,
it's it will get better. It will get, especially because of, aging people like me who just, I can use everything. I'm out there using it, but it's only going to get worse. And I need things to make it easier for reading and stuff like that. And I have the money to spend as well.
yeah. There you go.
You know,
And you say aging people like you, but there you go. Now we're all in the same boat because everyone is aging.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
all going to be there one day, and that's just getting people to that realization that you're not just making things better for other people or your
yeah.
users. It's also for yourself. You're going to make things. I think there's the one thing that I think resonates with absolutely everyone you speak to, even if there's pushback, is how frustrated have you been when you've used X website?
Oh, yeah.
And they'll go, oh God, I couldn't even get to the checkout. So you've
Yeah.
had that experience. Now
Yeah.
imagine that for 96% of apps,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what not one person, but 5%, 15% globally, that people are experiencing every day. We can tell that you can
We're
hear the
ranting, aren't
passion
we?
in this. Let's just keep. We'll go. Yeah, I'm enjoying it, but um, but let's get back to you. So, well, actually, the next part is actually about the future anyway. So, looking ahead
Okay.
and sort of your vision for where mobile accessibility is heading, and I guess we've kind of covered that slightly with trying to raise
Yeah.
that awareness. But
Yeah.
what would you really love to see change in the next few years? So, more immediate future in how teams are prioritizing and building accessible mobile experiences.
So I really think that uh, digital accessibility, all accessibility is the right thing to do. But I think what I would like to see in the future is that those companies who make their apps accessible, they are rewarded by beating their competitors. They have satisfied and growing customer bases, and that they, through having the commercial advantage, they can then become the advocates and the leaders in that space. So to me, I want it to be much more commercial about what's happening in this space. And then when you look at, in the past when we used to work with advertising agencies, and those agencies would have you know, the advertising awards, the best adverts and things like that. I'd love to see the mobile app accessibility awards happening. I'm sorry if I'm going off on one on this. It's not probably quite what you're,
No, it is.
the
Yeah, it's
norm,
great.
but I'd love to see, those companies who take this seriously being rewarded, and then also kind of awards around it. And what I love about the awards, I love the idea that you would then choose your app by the accessibility award winners. And I think Apple has started doing something along these lines with their accessibility nutrition labels, um, whereby the developers can say, what is accessible, what features they've added. And so you can look at that and then decide if you're going to download the app or not. That isn't compulsory. It might be in the future, I don't know. But it's kind of on the way to making it so that, rather than trying an app and thinking, oh, this is no good, you can just say, actually, I have my whole library here of the award winners for accessibility. These have all the features that I need that make it easy. And this is the app that I choose to do my banking with, or my online shopping with, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that for me is the future around mobile. I just want it to be easier for people to choose which apps they're going to use so that their life is easier.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing idea as well, to just have a certain library as well within the App Store or within the Play Store for Android devices where, yeah, I mean, even if you could filter by certain things, like certain restrictions that you have or certain
Yeah.
impairments, you go, okay, well, these are definitely going to work for me. And then you're good
Yes.
to go almost. Obviously, you still want to experience other things that everyone is able to. But yeah, I think to have that ease of access is yeah, that would be amazing. And the reward. So you said, I know that you've said about the commercial side of things, and at times I've probably misunderstood in a way how you've sort of put that as a not priority, but it has to be commercial because
Yeah.
money talks. We're in a capitalist society. We
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
money to fund these things and to find the people and pay the people to do the things. So,
Yeah.
um, as much as obviously we know it's the right thing to do, and there is a lot of empathy, and that's why as soon as you talk to someone with the right mindset, they will take it on board and go, oh yeah, why haven't we been doing this before? But yes, absolutely. In business, it has to obviously have a commercial positive, and there are, but it's making people aware of what those are.
Yeah. And it takes us all the way back to the data bit again, because
Mm,
I just think, I'm trying to think of some some good mobile apps, but it's that thing of just kind of like, oh my goodness, we've grown the customer base by 20% in 4 months or something like that. And just being able to go back to the business and saying, this is what's happened when we've added these features. Can we try and add these features now because we think it's going to make the revenue this? I think that's an easier case to go to the business with than, it's the right thing to do. Or I just think we as a group of people need to get more commercial about this in
Yeah.
order for the businesses to go, great, let's do it, let's spend money on it, let's invest in it, because actually what it's doing is making the app or the website or whatever it is better for everyone, and that's got to be a good thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the commercial side I want to push on.
Yeah, and I agree in that sense. I think it's often overlooked, but if it makes that buy-in a bit easier to gain, and business is ruthless, because as much
Yeah,
as, okay, well, it's good for all these people, but what's in it for me is probably a response you might get in terms of the business owner or the person that's in charge of the purse strings, like what's
yeah,
the return on investment? And if you can't really quantify that, it just makes that job of selling it into the business that bit harder, doesn't it? So
yeah. And I think
amazing.
you've seen this year, haven't you, like digital teams, the accessibility teams being downsized and things like that. I keep wondering, God, if they had more of a business case, would that be the case? Or is it just that businesses are just losing people across all the teams?
I think that there's different scenarios. I've seen some restructures, new design leaders coming in and sort of saying, no, this is how I want to shape my team, and it's worked before. It's a consideration that they're saying rather than a specialist. It's like they want a broad person that's going to do all of the UX or the UI design, but they also have accessibility. But you've seen some of the job specs that we get sent that we want everything, and we want
Yeah.
them to also be from Mars and Venus at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in my opinion, it's not the right way to go, obviously, and downsizing teams and accessibility doing such important work isn't the right thing to do. But then we may see the negative impact that has, and then the realization that
Mm.
actually it's the business case. They do need
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
that are focusing on that, and they'll bring them back
Yeah.
twofold.
Yeah.
Uh, but brilliant. So, final thoughts. So, before we wrap up, have you got a message for the listeners to take away about mobile accessibility? If that's strategic advice or mindset shift, or even a quote or anything that you've heard that you'd like to share, then yeah, share away.
Well, I have loved listening to your podcasts throughout the year, and I learn so much about them. And then I go and follow, whoever it is who's been speaking things. I can't remember any of the things they've said off the top of that, but there's one of the things before I started Well Done was make sure that you include people with the disabilities that you're testing for. If you're doing looking at an app and seeing if it's accessible, make sure that you're using people who actually have those disabilities testing it. So I'm kind of like, tick, got that. That's something I'm going to be doing. And so I think so. A consultancy that's using it could be that I'm using another consultancy to help us with that, but it's kind of really, really important that that's in place. In terms of strategic advice to anyone who is building mobile apps and in a business, I would just say look for the quick wins and try and measure it so you can be building a business case. I think um, I just think you can keep going back to the business if there's some improvement all the time. So look at the very quick wins if you can and measure it and see what happens when you do that. Because I just do believe passionately that making it just a bit easier for everyone to use is going to be, you're going to see the rewards of that.
Yeah, beneficial all round. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the advice that we get on the podcast is just do it, just start, and you'll start to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I think the second part of that advice, which is what you've just given, is try and measure it, and then you build your own case, because there's people that want to get into accessibility, but they've not been given the time in their role. It's all a side of desk thing. They're not compensated for it as well, as much as, you know, they still do it out of passion, but then that can lead to burnout. So I think what you're saying is great advice, because if you can start to make some sort of measurement or report to then build on that business case, then you might be doing it full time in the near future.
Yeah, and I think I'm told, Joe, that it's actually quite hard to measure it because
Yeah,
of all the other factors. But I just think, like you've just said, just try it. Just go, here we are now. We've done that, and there we are. There could be multiple factors that have affected the data, but just as a one starting point, it will get better as well over time. But it's just, it's not an easy thing to measure and go, that is because we've implemented accessibility. It's not that easy, but I think you have to start somewhere with that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Well, amazing. Thank you so much again for joining me. Second time round, but that means 2.5 years between the episodes, which is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, we speak to each other every day, but lovely speaking to you again. And I'm sure the listeners have loved it as well. So best of luck with
Oh,
Welldone. I'll do what I can to help support it, obviously, as well. And yeah,
thank you, Joe.
exciting
It's
times
been
ahead.
lovely chat. It's been lovely spending all this time chatting to you and not feeling that we should be working.
Amazing. Well,
All
yeah,
right. Thank
thanks
you.
again.